We've chosen to stand up. We've chosen to show you everything that we know and break it down so you know exactly where we were coming at this with, and so you could understand the decisions that we made and the information that we wanted to provide to you. The morning after the April 28th federal election, we received a very disturbing email. The sender claimed to represent a Russian state media agency, offering us money to produce videos, and said we wouldn't need to change a word of our content. We reported it to the RCMP immediately, and today we're sharing it with you because, as we've seen after 10 years of this liberal government, foreign interference thrives in darkness, and we believe Canadians deserve sunlight. So let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the email that we received on Tuesday at approximately 7:27 a.m., literally immediately after the federal election. Now it says, "You said Pierre would win. Why you say this when you don't know results yet? Let it be lesson learned. Agency under TASS have noted you have large community. If interested in making extra income, let me know and I put you in touch with TASS representative. No need for changing content. RU Handshake CA." This was sent by Maxim Lebedev, 1997 at protonmail.com. And you can see 2 screenshots of our content in there. Now, at first glance, this may look like kind of a ridiculous email. And it did kind of strike us as a little ridiculous, just the way it was worded and what was in there. Now, understand that I've been in the IT industry for 20 years, which much of that has included cybersecurity. So one of the things that I am very well trained in identifying is phishing emails. That's PHISHING. Now, what phishing emails typically are emails that are trying to literally fish for people. They want you to click on something, usually a nefarious link, or download an attachment to your computer so that the nefarious actors can either take over your computer or install something on your computer, whether it be a keylogger or something else, or try to get you to access something else nefarious, or maybe it's to get you to go to a banking website or some other site to steal your password in order to access sensitive information. There's something else called spear phishing. I know this is getting kind of weird to hear this, but these are the terms that are used in the IT world. Now, spear phishing is when the malicious actors get even more nefarious and they target executives, CEOs, high-level government officials by posing to be other representatives or colleagues in that same organization. They will ask them for specific information. They'll try to use signatures mined out of, publicly available information, that sort of thing. This was none of those. Now, one of the things that kind of really struck us is the person's name, which no doubt is not their real name, but well, you know what? Let's just break this email down. So the first thing is, when was this sent? Well, this was sent, as I said, Tuesday, April 29th at 7:27 a.m., right after the election. Why is that significant? Well, it's significant because right after the election, as we all know, and probably some of you still are, emotions were running hot. Why is that relevant? Well, one of the things that the Russians want to do with their disinformation and foreign interference approaches is to completely sow chaos within democratic societies. Why is that relevant in this case? Because when emotions are hot following an election loss of one side over the other, they think that it may make people more inclined to do things or make impulsive decisions more than they probably would otherwise. Leading up to the election, people are filled with hope. People are filled with determination. So that's not the time to send this type of email. The time to send this type of email is immediately following a bad result, and one that you're not too happy with. Let's continue. The next flag on this email. You said Pierre would win. Why you say this when you don't know result yet? Let it be lesson learned. At first, I was kind of confused as to why this was in this email. And it also cited the some of the videos that we actually had. So number one, this conveys that the person that actually wrote this email pays attention to our channel. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this person is trying to poke us in saying, well, you were wrong. You were wrong. Aren't you upset that Pierre lost? Aren't you upset that you said something and the opposite came true? Aren't you upset that your hope was crushed in this election? Let it be a lesson to you. They're trying to invoke an emotional reaction, which is the hallmark of any type of malicious interference or nefarious email, whether it be phishing, spear phishing or something else. They just do it in different ways depending on the email in question. Let's continue. Next line, agency under TASS have noted you have large community. If interested in making extra income, this immediately started raising big flags to us because this is not a sponsorship email. No. Sponsorship email is, hi, I'm Bob from so-and-so, and we sell this, and we would love to partner with you. We think our brand is aligned with yours. We think our value is aligned with yours. Here's what we're thinking. Here's our phone number. Let's chat. This is not one of those. Now, after looking up TASS, a big chill went down our spine, but we'll come back to that. It says, let me know and I will put you in touch with TASS representative. No need for changing content. What's so big about this statement? This statement drew our memories like a bullet right back to committee and right back to the tenant media scandal. If you don't know about the tenant media scandal, I'll tell you a little bit about it. The tenant media scandal is an organization that was founded down in the United States in partnership with a media influencer and possibly, we don't know yet, unbeknownst to them, Russian state media. Now, why is this relevant here? Because, as some of you may know, Canadian influencers were drawn into this huge investigation going on in the States, and it was drawn into a parliamentary investigation up here in Canada. One Lauren Southern ended up going into testify in this committee. We actually covered that way back in the day in Northern Perspective, I believe it was last year. Now, why did this draw us back to this? Because of something Lauren said, and I recalled it clear as day as soon as I read this email. Take a look.
And she called me a few more times and told me that it would be a totally free speech contract. I could do whatever I wanted. They sent me the offer. And at that time, I was looking to expand and hopefully be able to hire some staff to improve the quality of my videos, and being able to do so while having total freedom and control over the content I produce is quite frankly something you get at almost no media companies, very few anyways. So that's why I haven't worked at very many of the last 10 years, other than Rebel, which had a similar contract. But yeah, I considered myself pretty lucky to have found a startup company that was looking to give their creators full creative control.
That started sending chills down our spines. So, I can't really explain the emotions Tanya and I were going through as we were kind of digging into this more and more, which didn't take too long. But here we were, essentially being seemingly presented with a offer from someone who was essentially doing the same thing as the foreign actors with Tenant Media, allegedly. So, there's one more piece in this email that I want to go over, and it is key. So this sign off here, RU Handshake CA. What does that mean? That means Russia cooperating with Canada. That's what that means. So what? It's an emoji. Big deal, right? Well, it's a bigger deal than you might think. See, a lot of times spam filters and email systems that have built-in automated screening, they can detect certain language, they can detect certain problem emails, and that's why a lot of these end up in the junk folder. That's why a lot of these end up in the automated block list of platforms like Office 365, Google Mail, and things like that. But when you use certain emojis, as silly as it might sound, sometimes it allows them to bypass these spam filters. The other thing it does is emojis have this way of disarming people when you're looking at a message. You know, in the back of your mind, it looks a little silly, or it looks friendly, or something like that. So it's actually inserted here strategically in order to kind of seem a little bit more friendly. Now, this was the crux of the email. This is what we got. So we were pretty concerned, considering the election just happened. Everyone was running really hot the next day. And all of these indications and pieces, you know, going back to Tenet Media, and what we learned what TASS meant. So we called up the RCMP immediately. They advised us where to report this, and we did so. A couple days later, we received a response. This is what we saw. So this is the email that we received on May 2nd, which was a few days later. And at this point, we were already in Ottawa. So it says, the RCMP acknowledge your receipt of your tip dated April 29, 2025 via our National Security Information Network tip line. Do you have any other information to share with us on the matter? Have you received any other messages from the sender? This is the most important part of this email. Please be advised, as per Justed Canada, TASS is listed as an entity under the Special Economic Measures, Russia, regulations for grave breach of international peace and security. The Special Economic Measures Act allows Canada to impose sanctions in specific situations as defined by Justice Canada with the source. Feel free to respond to this email as you wish. This validated our concern. And there's a couple of pieces to know about this email. A, we got a response that said more than thanks for the tip, and that's it. 2, this email didn't say, don't worry about this. What the email did say is, hey, by the way, that agency that they mentioned in that email, they are really bad news, folks. So you may want to be aware of that, and you may want to look this up. What this email said to us is, you cannot discount what this email is. You cannot discount the content in it, and you cannot discount the origin. Does it guarantee that this is a Russian state actor? No. But nothing's going to guarantee that in this case. So we started to look a little deeper. As I mentioned, what is TASS or TASS? Well, TASS is an acronym that I can't pronounce because it's in Russian. But what it essentially is it was used since the Cold War, and it used to be known roughly as the Telegraph Agency of the Soviet Union. And they have kept that agency going ever since. Don't take my word for it. Here's the Justice website of the Government of Canada. So when we clicked on that link sent to us on the RCMP, it sent us to this website, Special Economic Measures for Russia Regulations. Notice the date, folks. This is not a Justin Trudeau Act. This is a Stephen Harper Act, as this is dated March 17th of 2014. And it states, whereas the Governor in Council is of the opinion that the actions of the Russia Federation constitute a grave breach of international peace and security that has resulted or is likely to result in a serious international crisis, therefore His Excellency the Governor General in Council, on the recommendation of the Minister of Foreign Affairs pursuant to subsections 4123 of the Special Economic Measures Act, makes the annexed Special Economic Measures Russia Regulations. Now, this goes through a very, 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 very long list of regulations and descriptions of sanctions and whatnot. We're interested in where it talks about lists. List. Schedule 1. A person whose name is listed in Schedule 1 is a person in respect of whom the Governor in Council, on the recommendation of the Minister, is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds to believe is A person who has engaged in activities that directly or indirectly facilitate, support, provide funding for, or contribute to a violation of attempted violation of the sovereignty or territorial integrity of Ukraine, or that obstruct the work of international organizations in Ukraine. A1, a person who has participated in gross and systemic human rights violations in Russia. B, a former or current senior official of the government of Russia. C, an associate of a person referred to in any of paragraphs A to B, and it goes on. So this is the criteria to end up on the list that's in Schedule 1. Well, who do we find on that list? We find TASS at line 182. So the government of Canada has already determined that these guys way back 11 years ago are very, very bad news. But it's not just the government of Canada that has flagged these guys. If you don't trust the government of Canada, trust the U.S. State Department. U.S. Department of State GEC Special Report, Pillars of Russia's Disinformation and Propaganda Ecosystem, GEC, August 2020. This is on page 34 of that same report, where it specifically calls TASS as Russian state-sponsored media. And again, later in the report, it refers to the same thing in another scenario. So this is what we were faced with, folks. We were faced with somebody that was offering us money, steady income based on the implication there, and offering to introduce us to somebody that was connected with a Russian state-sponsored media organization that has existed since the Cold War, claimed to, want cooperation between Russia and Canada, and seemed to have been validated by the RCMP email that we actually received a few days later. Couple points here. We didn't go public with this on the 29th. We didn't go public with this on the 30th. We didn't go public with this on the 1st, or the 2nd, or the 3rd. We decided to tell people about this on the 4th. Why did we do that? Because CSIS has been adamant, chasing, screaming at this Liberal government for the last 10 years how to handle foreign interference. And how have they recommended to do that? By sunlight and transparency, meaning as soon as you detect it, you expose it. What has the Liberal government done? The complete opposite of that. So here we are. So we made the decision to let everybody know that this was happening. And this was happening during a very volatile period in our country's democracy right now, right after an election. Some people will say, hey, this looks fake to me. Well, that's up to you. The RCMP didn't tell us it was fake. Some people will say, well, you're overreacting. Really? Overreacting to protect the integrity of not only Northern Perspective, but Canadian alternative media? I don't think that's overreacting at all. If we really want to be alternative media, we need to stop pretending that we're the mainstream media. The mainstream media doesn't talk about this stuff. All the mainstream media does is, what's the newest story? Let's grab onto that and bury it in the next news cycle. Or if it's politically inconvenient, if it may impact their paychecks, they move on from that. Well, we don't do things at Northern Perspective because they're easy. We don't do it for clicks. We do it because we feel it's necessary. And this is one thing that we really agree with CSIS. The number one way to combat foreign interference is to shine a sunlight on it. That's how the United States does it. That's how other countries that are really successful with this do it. And it's what Canadians have essentially been told not to do. We were told not to do this. We were told to retract it. We were told to bury it. Well, we've chosen to stand up. We've chosen to show you everything that we know and break it down so you know exactly where we were coming at this with, and so you can understand the decisions that we made and the information that we wanted to provide to you. So, to those that are joining with us in standing up and saying, we will not be bought, we're not for sale, I applaud you. I really do. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if this ends up being a hoax or a fake or whatever you want to call it. We will never know that. But it doesn't matter if it is or not. What matters is that foreign actors know that we're standing up and we're saying, you know what? Don't even try it. Because alternative media in Canada isn't for sale.